Let's dive into what you think radical intentionality is, and how do you apply it in both your family and your professional life?
So for a long time, I'm obsessed with the idea of like finding the first principles in something. So like, what is the foundation to like a maximized life, right? To being a maximal father. Forever, I thought it was intentionality. Now I think it's curiosity. But because like curiosity, if we choose to be curious, we have to ask questions, which actually helps us to determine what to be intentional on in the first place. Intentionality is then the follow through from the question into action. And then discipline is the key and lever to freedom as it's applied with intention, and we continue to ask questions that refine the trajectory over time. So it creates this positive feedback loop that allows everything. This is why when you said where's the overlay between raising children and your professional, the last decade of my life has been on destroying every barrier that separates different portions of my lives, because I almost bankrupted myself morally by allowing barriers and silos of focus to increase, and there was no integrated self. So it's not possible to not see these things all interconnected from my perspective.
Welcome back to the Present Fathers podcast. We are pleased to introduce Jon Mayo to the pod. He is a father of 4 boys, married, an absolute stud, Army veteran like myself. He's a fellow redleg. And so with that, Jon, welcome. How are you, bro?
Dude, fantastic and jazzified to be here.
Jazzified, love it.
Yes.
Well, why don't you expand upon my quick intro and let the audience know who you are, and then we'll kick this thing off, bro.
Yeah, you hit the core things. Father, husband, man, working to be a better man every day and pursue my life's purpose of helping others unleash their potential. So
love it, man. So we met not too long ago through a mutual connection. Right away, I could tell you're just a guy full of energy and an excitement for kind of meeting others and optimizing. And I would assume that's something you do through WayMaker. So I'd love to learn right up front, what is WayMaker? Why did you start it? And let's just go from there.
yeah, absolutely. So there's 2 primary arms to WayMaker. One is the professional side, where I work with founders and CEOs to help create purpose-driven impact and profitability through their organizations as they grow and scale or go through like significant transformation projects. You can think exponential growth, or we're about to go under and we need a change. And I do that through what I call the Conduit method and steward leadership. And then on the personal side, which is they're all part of the same sphere, right? Everything is mutually supportive. But on the personal side, I created a community called WayMakers. Gotten to explore the concept through numerous books and walk in fellowship with men over the last few years as we've been developing this and what that all looks like. But the ultimate idea is the best version of ourselves meets us on our deathbed and looks at us and says, look at all that you could have been that now has to die with you. So go die. And we want to close that gap. So no missed days, radical intentionality, curiosity, sisu, which is grit, and focused forward movement together in close community. So that's the community side. That's the professional side. We integrate all of that for a harmonized existence, and we have a lot of fun doing it along the way.
Jon, that's pretty cool. Can you give us an example of a turnaround or an exciting moment where you're able to really help a company?
Yeah. So joined one company. So there's 2 fun ideas with this. One, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And 2, strategy is just culture dressed up. So there's this archaic idea that if we just grab a whip and start smashing people and focus on numbers, we're going to win. Now, we have to measure what we care about. But if we instead shift our focus to how do we better empower, equip, and rise up our team members as leaders to help us win collectively in a pursued mission and vision, then everything starts to align. And you have the opportunity to systemize for success. You have the opportunity to do things with that. But along the way, that operationalization it, if I could speak and not have Tourette's or whatever just happened, so that you can really bake it into the operating fabric, though, of the organization in question, right? And what's cool is some people think it's woo-woo, but in reality, we see that profitability follows that and exponentially follows that more so than many other techniques or approaches to leadership and community building within organizations. So there's a company I joined that I was working with last year specifically. We saw 73% improvement in net profitability over the course of 9 months. And they're an 8-figure company. So it's like fun to see in these organizations how when you put your money where your mouth is and you bleed by the example of the actions that you take and you're consistent, the things that can transform when you rally everyone around a shared idea.
So, John, what's the crossover between personal and professional? What skills do you take from that corporate CEO ideas and bring that to the family and to men who want to level up with their personal lives?
Ooh, fun question. There's actually no separation. I don't think there's any separation. I was working with a client last week, and I partner in long-term engagements with everyone I work with. And we were talking about how he had this feeling of obligating his team to communicate, to tie into certain communication channels, things like that. And we've been working together for a while, and I was able to sit back and like I asked him the question, I was like, hey, what do you think there's any possibility that the single point of failure has become you? And it was this beautiful opportunity. Well, fast forward, all the good stuff that happened there and what that invited us to do together. I'm having dinner with my 4 boys and my wife. We're going around the table. I'm giving instructions for the evening because I have a project I need to finish. I've repeated myself 3 times. One of my sons says, Dad, we get it. I said, okay, well, explain to me what needs done. He explains it. And I realized that the very same thing I just had worked with my partner professionally on, I was guilty of at the table because I'm currently transforming my mind from having toddlers to young men. And that's taken years of wrestling with. But it was another moment of, okay, boys, so instead of repeating myself, I just need to ask what your understanding is and empower and equip you to take action. They're like, yeah, Dad, we got it. And they got it. They handled business that night. So in those ways, everything overlaps. How I approach any problem set, any system, any conflict, I get to experience with the small squad of angry barbarian Sasquatches in my house on a daily basis.
So, John, I want to dive deeper into that because I love the idea of seasons of fatherhood, right? The type of dad that's great with a 2-year-old is different than a dad with a 17-year-old. Can you talk a little bit? You have 4 boys of very different ages. How do you quickly switch between being a kind, loving dad for a 2-year-old and a little bit tougher dad for a 15-year-old?
Yeah, so my boys are all within 4 years of each other. We had 4 boys under 4. So it's pretty tight in their age, yet their development is that they're going through big life stages, just kind of like a delayed effect. And what I find is my reversion is back to the 5 to 6-year-old who needs the firm correction and instruction, not the budding young man who needs empowered and equipped with left and right boundaries. And the more tired and frustrated I am, the more prone I am to falling back. And then, to explore your question for a moment longer, they're each so different that it really requires that changing still conversation, personality to personality. Because where one son I can kind of just light into, he gets it, we realign, we go. One of my other sons, if I do that, it's World War III. He would rather die than accept what is happening. And we both get angry and have to work that out. So I think that it goes to what I call the tactical pause, which is just that short, ground yourself. I'll put my hand on my chest, table something, take a breath, remind myself that I love them and I don't want to unalive them, and then re-engage with curiosity on how we can solve the problem.
That's pretty fantastic. Pause and not unalive them. Okay. Well, I think there's some great qualities that dads can have, but one of them that stuck out that you listed was radical intentionality, because intentionality is my favorite. Like if there's one word that I think would absolutely make or break a dad is his intentionality. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's dive into what you think radical intentionality is and how do you apply it in both your family and your professional life.
Oh boy, oh boy. So for a long time, I'm obsessed with the idea of like finding the first principles in something. So like, what is the foundation to like a maximized life, right? To being a maximal father. And forever, I thought it was intentionality. Now I think it's curiosity. But because like curiosity, if you guys are okay with a little bit of an exploration, if we choose to be curious, we have to ask questions, which actually helps us to determine what to be intentional on in the first place. Intentionality is then the follow through from the question into action. And then discipline is the key and lever to freedom as it's applied with intention. And we continue to ask questions that refine the trajectory over time. So it creates this positive feedback loop that allows everything. This is why when you said, where's the overlay between raising children and your professional, the last decade of my life has been on destroying every barrier that separates different portions of my lives because I almost bankrupted myself morally by allowing barriers and silos of focus to increase, and there was no integrated self. So it's not possible to not see these things all interconnected from my perspective. And I think it's an illusion we tell ourselves when we think that they're different, because how we show up and do one thing is how we show up and do everything. And there's always ways to learn from those interconnected experiences. So that intentionality starts with that questioning.
This episode is brought to you by Pre-Sleep. Hey there, my name is George Hayworth. I'm a husband and father and an entrepreneur. I work out a lot. I like to stay physically fit and active. And one of my secrets for how I stay so healthy and get so much done isn't because I'm some awesome guy. It's because I use Pre-Sleep. Now, this product is one of my personal favorites. It's probably the best supplement in my cabinet, and that is because it's 100% pure and natural. All the ingredients are made right here in the US of A, and the product is based around magnesium, L-theanine, and glycine, and these three work together to help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. And then on top of that, it increases the quality of your sleep. So it is a triple threat when it comes to optimizing your sleep. And my favorite thing about it is that there's no melatonin, so it's not habit forming or anything like that. And there's no sugar whatsoever. So it is super simple to use. You just take one scoop, put it in a glass of water, stir it up down the hatch. I do it about an hour before bedtime, and I sleep great. I have no issues getting to sleep, staying asleep, and I track it on my watch. It tells me how good my sleep quality is, and it is exponentially better when I use my Pre-Sleep. So what are you waiting for? Go check it out. Sign up today, get yourself a tub of this, and you will never look back. Your best sleep is waiting in this bottle of magic right here. Get 10% off at checkout by using the code GEORGE10. That's GEORGE10, or tap the link in the description below.
I love that, because I always break down the word like you have intent and action. And so like the intent of the heart. So I always say, what is my intent when I'm going into something? Like I try to check myself. And I think that that is such an important thing as a father, because like I could be going in to try to disciple or discipline my son, but is my intent out of anger, or is it to correct, but also make sure like what's his side of the story? Because I've heard it countless times from guests, but also in my own life, where like my son's genuinely tried with good intent to do something, and I almost punished him for it. So like the intent with action is so important, because for me, like if I don't have that intent initially, I'm not prepared, and it's not going to be near as executed as it should be, in my opinion. So that's fabulous, man. I love that. It's a great answer. Dustin, I think you had a little bit on that there.
Yeah, it's and I've made this mistake countless times as well. If I allow my ego to get in the way at all, it's really tough around other people with sports in particular. Sports, especially team sports, are really important to me, and my son could care less. He's very athletic and he loves surfing and skiing and things like that, does not care about team sports. And so when he gets out on the field and doesn't try, it wrecks me. But it doesn't matter to him, it matters to me. And so I'm allowing these things, my ego, to get in the way of him. And so of course he's not going to try hard. He sees me fuming on the sidelines, and it just, he sees an angry dad who's not, that's not the way to do it. So I think it's so important to check your own intentions. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to realize that your child who is young is not the one making the mistake. It's almost always you as the adult who's led them in that direction, and you can fix your own behavior, which will then lead to them having better behavior. And so I love that, because I know that I can fix my own behavior, which will then lead to better behavior for my kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that resonates. And I think that when we look at the overlap between profession and fatherhood, and then also that type of radical inward-facing self-accountability, right? What we really see is the opportunity to say, okay, I can improve this and I will. But the problem is when we keep telling ourselves that we're going to do it tomorrow, that's where our dreams die. And that's where the opportunity to affect our children dies, with that procrastination. So it all goes back to like the only moment that we have any influence over whatsoever is now. And we have to act on it.
Love that. Yep. There is no, tomorrow's not promised. So we got to take action with the time that we have, which is now. So love that, man. I wanted to actually switch gears a little bit, but I think it will play into actually this line of conversation here. And, not necessarily unique to veterans. I think any man can struggle with kind of an identity crisis, or, you have so much wrapped up into something, and then you have to change careers or something like that. And, that's a stumbling block for a lot of men. So I would imagine if, you're a little bit like me, you're very proud of your service and then had to kind of navigate that transition. And you alluded to earlier having kind of this almost compromising your morals and things like that. So kind of walk us through some of the things that maybe were challenges for you, but also some of the things you've learned along the way about how, kind of having your focus on these longer term things like your legacy eases, maybe some of the insecurity you have in the short term, and really your identity transcends, a job. But anything you've learned along that way, I think that's something a lot of guys are struggling with.
So first to insecurity, I think one of the reasons a lot of us struggle with insecurity is because we base our courage on what we've accomplished, not the power of our intentions. And if we shift where we derive our courage from to the power of our intent, even going back to asking the intent of our children, right? I think that it helps to kill a lot of the insecurity and imposter syndrome that can spur up. And then to the legacy piece, and I'm working right through that transition point in that moment. I don't find much value in things that are to come so much as what can be built and experienced now. And in that, I just add the word living before legacy, because if I'm not living it today and inspiring it today and creating it today, then that legacy is like heaven or some other concept we want to cling to, retirement, whatever the word is. It's useless to us now. So how do we make it something that's living and affecting change and action today? And if we use that kind of as a back and front signpost for those who shoot at the question you asked, about a decade ago, I get fuzzy on the years at this point. I was excelling in everything I did in about 7 different domains, right? Which just make up a normal person's life. But the problem is they were incredibly siloed in my mind. So I'd approach each one. When I was at home, I was dad and father. When I was at work, I was soldier. When I was, and leader. When I was here, I was this. And that caused me to make decisions and to lose touch with a form of integrated reality that integrated self would never allow, but that version of excellence saw completely healthy and appropriate, completely healthy and appropriate for the context of that isolated incident. And that was causing a moral degradation of who I was as an integrated whole. And it came to a head one night when one of my sons at the time, he was like 4, was consistently having nightmares of terrible things he had never been introduced to happening. And they were waking him up between 1 and 3 in the morning. One morning, I went in, I was a little buzzed because, especially in the Army, like I was drinking since I was 13. I'll still enjoy a beverage on occasion, but like I was home 10% of the time. So had some drinks, went to bed. He woke up to night terrors. I went in, I was angry because it was like the 10th time in a row, 10th night in a row. And I was like, God, what is happening? I'm supposed to be the head of my house and the protector of my family. These types of things should not be happening to my young son. And it was crystal clear to me in that moment that it was because I'd failed and abdicated my responsibility as head of my house and protection for my family, in line with my faith system and what I see in the world. And I realized right then just how wide those caverns had shifted, how the trenches had grown. I was like, well, what do I need to do? He's like, well, you need to start over. You have 5% worth saving. The rest needs to be burned off and left to die. And I said, okay, well, if you show me, I'll do it. And I started the path of doing that and reintegrating myself. The nightmare stopped. And it's been this adventure since then. And I realized the Army's a beautiful thing. Who I'd created myself in that ecosystem, I had to leave. And I made the decision to leave, went into an entirely new world. I already knew I didn't know who I was. I lost who I thought I was. I put myself in an environment where I had no systems to create anything. And alone and unafraid with my bride, who is incredible, we forged into a new frontier and began to transform it into a landscape of opportunity. And day by day, pain by pain, mistake by mistake, we forged a new life together. And I forged a new identity that's now integrated and whole. And that identity still makes mistakes, but it allows me to show up for my sons in a way, because it allows me to show up for myself, that I never allowed before that.
Love that, man. Love the honesty and transparency, and really appreciate it. And I guess just to maybe tie a little bow on this for the guys listening, maybe someone's finding themselves in that position where they're kind of in that identity crisis moment. Very practically, what would be the the 2 or 3 steps that you would recommend for them to start doing right away to actually get on that journey, like you said, to forge that new identity and path forward?
Yeah, dude, those moments are a gift. Like, it got a little somber in here, but like that difficulty is a gift. Oh my goodness, it triggers this moment of psychological awareness, right? Like, you can think the midlife crisis or whatever profession you leave or whatever relationship, where all of a sudden you feel lost and you feel pain. That is an opportunity to break out of an unintentional cycle and embrace intentional cycles that allow you to move forward. And that's where the community, that's where the books ever, and everything has been in this exploration where I invite folks to join me in the adventure. But like, the tactical thing right now, don't go back to sleep. If you're there right now, don't go back to sleep. Say thank you. Wow. Because pain's a master teacher, and we can learn to savor the suffering and learn and grow all the more for it. So if we realize, oh, I've been lied to that I should be comfortable, that's false. This is actually a gift to allow me to realign myself with a life worth living and pursue a maximized life. If I take a breath and look at all this pain that's around me, what is it trying to teach me? And just don't go back to sleep. Lean in.
So, Jon, how do you teach that to your kids? Because I feel like I can teach that to an adult man, but when a child hears that this is going to be hard, but we're going to get through it, I have a really hard time helping them understand the value in that. Do you have a system you found with your boys where you're able to help them understand that just because something is difficult doesn't mean that it's bad?
Yeah, I inflict suffering on them. I inflict
Take a knee, drink water, face out.
Yeah, no, straight up. So we just moved to East Texas. It's a different type of heat here than what they're accustomed to. They're used to going out into blizzards when it's negative 20 degrees and trudging through the snow to take care of our chickens. Here, it has a real feel of like 110 because of humidity and because, I don't know, it's Texas. We cleared a couple hundred square feet of sod, moved a bunch of dirt, leveled it out, did all of this over the course of 8 hours in the sun. We hydrated. I made sure that they were safe and taken care of, but there was suffering in that. And for the months leading up to that, we were building a barn in Utah that's 4,500 square feet, 12-hour days. There's suffering in that. And being able to participate in pain with them, and then debrief that when we're eating, debrief that when they get extra ice cream, debrief that because they've earned it, right? That creates the ideological currency, the communication currency that allows me to say when they're to illustrate these ideas when we're working through things that are psychological, because like if they're facing something where their discipline is lacking or it's an emotional pain or something like that, I can say, hey, do you remember that day where we really suffered? Yeah. Did it last forever? No. What did we learn that day? ABC. Okay, buddy, this is going to pass. This is going to pass. What can we learn? And so just getting in the trenches with them and making sure that they don't get an easy button.
So you're telling me that I can't sit on the couch and eat bonbons and tell my kids to do things and they won't do it?
Good luck. Aren't they the perfect mirrors, though, genuinely, for what we're hypocritical of?
Totally.
Yeah. So, like...
You see your kid do something, and you're like, oh, I know where they got that.
Yep.
Dang. All right. Need to work on that one. Yep.
So where's the fine line? Because there's definitely a balance line here, and I want to specify this for other dads just in case they try to apply this. We obviously don't want them to apply it where you want them to suffer to get wisdom, right, and to get experience, but you don't want them to suffer where they have scars or trauma, right? And so where's that fine line for you? Like how do you define that line so that other dads can maybe better define it for themselves?
Trial and error. And apologies when it goes too far. But because I'm in it with them, I'm monitoring their emotional well-being, and I like the caution in this because the last thing I'd want to give the perception of is that I'm not raising hyper emotionally intelligent young men.
Absolutely.
We talk often about what are you feeling, and then finding the accurate emotion. It's not just anger or sadness or pain. There's stress, there's anxiety, there's joy, which is different than happiness. There's peace. So working with them to elevate their worldview through their lexicon, right? Their ability to speak their language is helpful. And then the other one's trial and error. Sometimes I push them too hard. Sometimes I go too far. And then I realize, oh, this isn't them not wanting to do the work. This is going too far and I have to correct
Right.
course.
Right.
And I pay very close attention to them. So it's this thing where over time you get better with it. But I think the idea of like doing it from the couch, F off, get out of here, go away. Like, don't. If you think you're going to enact some higher standard on your children than you hold for yourself, just go start punching yourself in the face because it's ridiculous. But if you're out there in the heat with them and you're monitoring them and you realize, okay, what can I do to help? How are they doing? Hey, buddy, go get some water, come back in 5 minutes, set a timer. And you do those things. It's not about being a man where you're just this machismo, unbreakable machine. It's about stretching the boundaries iteratively so that strength is produced. So I may want them to be out there with me the whole time. I may send one in a dozen times, the other in 30 times, the third one in once. I'm going to monitor to each of them what their needs are based on what I'm seeing. And sometimes I can see this is totally just a psychological weakness that needs burned out. But it's better to burn that out iteratively over time and stretch that muscle than to break them now, which goes to the scars point. So I think one has to be careful because they will remember what you do. And if you strive to do it well and apologize when you err, and you continue to pursue their hearts through the process, not just the product, I think that they have a lot of grace for us as well.
What a wonderful distinction. Thank you very much. It truly reminds me of the image that I've always seen where like you have like boss and leader and the boss is whipping while riding on the thing that's on the backs of the others, and then the leader is in the front pulling them with it, and so like that's such a good distinction, being in the dirt or in the trial with them and watching closely. That's so amazing. Such a great answer.
Yeah. And the one thing I'd add is I allow myself 1/3 the opportunities for hydration, rest, or recovery that I enact on them. So if any of them needs anything, I triple my time to ensure that I'm keeping a good pulse on the difficulty I'm enacting on them. Because if I'm suffering more, then I'm more attuned to what they may be experiencing. Because they're not just mini men, they're children. So
exactly,
I have to.
You're just a little bit stronger than them, probably.
Yeah.
So just a wee bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've honed this blade, so it's like I don't know. Those are just some of the real world tools I'm developing that I'd invite people to experiment with.
And they see that as well. When they see you going in tougher, suffering as dad, there's a little bit of shame that goes into that. They go, okay, wow, I need to at least step up and do 10% of what dad is doing because he's capable of that. So I'm seeing the level that he's holding himself to. I want to be like that. I want to do better. I want to be like this model that I'm seeing.
Did you say shame?
I think I misspoke in the sense you don't want to shame your kids by doing better than them and look how strong I am and you're weak. That's not what I meant to imply. Yeah. More in the sense that they want to achieve a higher level to be more like you. And I think it would be a mistake as a dad to shame your children into saying, and I'm guilty of this sometimes, I'll be doing something, I'll be sweating outside. My son, I'm hot, I need to go in for water. Oh, don't be a wimp, stay outside and hang out with me. I don't think that's necessarily what you want to do. I think if anything, you just want to lead by example and show them what it is, that they can achieve.
Yeah. Well, with that, I'm glad you said shame because the shame's there when they fail. So like being aware of that so that we can address it, I think is important. It's an invitation to greatness though. Like that's what we're doing, in the middle of a hard project where it's getting rough. Like I've worked to get away from just suck it up. I've worked to say, boys, this is where we develop discipline. This is where we develop strength. This is where we develop Sisu, which is like grit on steroids, indomitable spirit of will. Like, so when it gets hard, I say, like, I literally look at them and I'll be like, sons, this is where we develop what makes us who we are. This is how we become waymakers. Right now, this feeling, what we overcome today is it. And one, I think, very short story that would be beneficial is my oldest son is the least prone to train, to work out. We have a gym on site. All of the kids work out. He's the least prone. The other day, we're moving furniture. He was unable to help me move it. His younger brother was able to come over, lift it up, and move it with me. Instead of shaming him, which it would have caused if I said, this is why I tell you to train. Do you see how much weaker you are than him? That would have created a negative emotion. It would have probably pissed him off and encouraged him to work out, but it would have had the wholesome, grounded fruit that I wanted to produce in that cultivated. Maybe, maybe not. What I chose to do was take him to the side and whisper in his ear and say, hey, did you see how your younger brother was able to lift that just now? Yes, sir. This is why I encourage you to train. Thank you for your help. Let's go get the next one. So now he carried that, and guess who I saw training yesterday in the garage, in our gym? So, so it's like, man, there's so many mistakes, but that was one of those moments. I was like, yeah, this was better.
Yeah, I got it right. So this is an interesting topic, and maybe I'll be the contrarian here. I think we're actually talking about two different things potentially. So like in Dustin's example, I would say that's shaming someone, right? But I do believe there is a different form of shame that I think is absolutely a positive thing. And so like, let's use the family unit, for example, and let's say you have family values, right? If one of our children, or even me or whatever from my house, steps out of line of what we declare our family, values are, I should feel shame, right? I should feel shame of dishonoring the family name and all those kinds of things. And in your example there, now we're not going to belittle the person who's out of alignment. We want to bring them back into alignment. But I think setting up those structures to where betraying the tribe has that consequence of the feeling of shame, because that is a powerful motivator. And I think in a lot of ways, that's where a lot of people are going wrong today, culturally, as a family, is it's essentially like, well, just do whatever you want, just be happy, make yourself happy. And there is no shame. And it's a guardrail, really, I think, for us. I'd love to act like I'm some morally superior, highly disciplined dude, but, a lot of it is I just don't want to be shamed for, being this or that are things I've stated I don't want to be, right? So I would love your thoughts on that, because it's kind of a tightrope here that we got to walk as fathers.
This is why I love choosing words carefully, because a word like shame has so many connotations that immediately evoke strong emotional responses for now 3 of the 4 of us who've spoken to it, right? And what I hear with what you say, I agree with how you just articulated that, and I would consider that accountability with a sharp punish. Like the price of that accountability is shame. That is the negative that happens when you don't rise, and I would agree with that. And I mean, one of the things that happened, going to this pool example, because it was last weekend and it's extremely relevant or pertinent, is when they were starting to weaken and crack, right? Different ones. I'd say, this is not what Mayos do. I'm raising you to be waymakers. This is our opportunity to rise. So it's the both now. Now you have this stick of, I don't want to be not who I'm supposed to be a part of. I don't want to be an outcast. I don't want to be another. I don't want to be shamed into the oblivion and the darkness. But I also have the invitation, so I see the direct scaffolding to climb into the light. But that's the thought that comes to mind.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying. I figured you'd have a good way to wrap that up. But for anyone who maybe only thinks of shame in a negative connotation, I think just consider of how, like you said, it's the consequence of no accountability, really.
Oh yeah, and one more thing, it is another sweet elixir of joy to me to be able to shame a grown man. Like, and there's difference, right? Like, psychological maturity matters. I started the Iron Ranch Murder Club Texas edition, which is just like a small group of fighters who come over to the gym I have. And one of them missed because he slept through his alarm because his phone died and stuff. So, of course, there was a lot of playful shame there, right? Whereas, like, so everything from the playful to the real, but then also just, like, think embracing it and realizing, like, do you want to be to this standard or not? Because when you choose not to, that is falling, and that is that negative feeling you have is a blend of shame. Yeah.
So you're talking about, your family values or the WayMaker values. Can you, for the dads that are trying to build like a family crest or a family set of values or a core, something that they would say every morning, like, Blinson's or Hayworth's or whoever is this, right? What do you suggest that they start with? And like, what are some of the ones that you use that you just find are invaluable for when you're doing things and raising your children?
And are mayos better than mustards?
Well, we're definitely the creamier spread. And there is a version that comes out that's spicy mayo. You got to watch out for jokes.
That. Yeah, epic. We see Dustin is our token dad joker. Like, he's just all the corny ones. He's got them all. So I was waiting for it. I'm surprised we made it this long, to be honest. We're 32 minutes into the episode. I'm actually shocked we waited that long. So sorry.
I'm just trying to catch up to him,
Oh, man.
Goodness. I was like, we're on something.
I'm just going to relish in this for a second.
Nice. This is how we know we're all dads.
Yes. Yes. This is getting clipped.
It's so real though.
It'll be on Twitter tomorrow.
Yeah,
All right.
good. Man, my brain just scrolled on me because all the condiment jokes.
Brandon asked you a serious question.
Yeah,
I've lost
family
it too.
values, like building.
Yeah,
Yes.
where to start with the family
Yeah.
values? There we go.
Thank
This is
you for-
actually important. Let's bring it back together, guys. All right, Jon, take it away, my man.
Thank you for the saucy jokes. And on family values, yeah, I don't have a singular like creed, right?
Well, you've said Sisu a lot.
Yeah.
I know you kind of quickly defined it. Go into that one because I'm sure most people have not heard that, and just from what I know of you, that's definitely very core to who you are and the things that you try to instill. So let's start with that one. How about that?
Absolutely. And I do have a response. I just allowed myself the moment to think on it. To Sisu's a Finnish word, and it's a core integral part of the Finnish culture. And it means like indomitable will. It's this idea that against insurmountable odds, we will rise unbroken. And when I learned that, I fell in love with it because it has like 100 meanings. It's one of those words that's not a direct translation to English. Bravado, grit, ingenuity, resolve, all of these things blend into it. And I was like, by God, that is as much the American spirit that I want to progress myself that I've ever seen. Became obsessed with it with at my time a gentleman I served with and my business partner in an adventure we were on back in the day, and we like just fell in love with it. So that concept has become the word of like we're developing Sisu, right? My boys have been trained to understand that it's a blend of these ideas and it's going to suck. And the other one is intentionality, curiosity, courage, right? Which goes a bit into Sisu but needs called out from time to time. The response to your question, Brandon, on how would I encourage someone who's wanting to do the crest? I would be careful to cement words in, but allow them to be interchangeable scaffolding to grow upon. And I'd focus more on the quiet actions I take and be patient in continuing to take them until I see them being replicated in my house.
Wow. Great answer.
Yeah. Culture starts with us as the fathers. Yep.
Yeah. And like a great alliteration of that is like the sports teams, right? Dustin, you're passionate about team sports. If I want fitness to be a core value in my home, instead of yelling at my boys or telling my boys to work out, I need to have them wake up in the morning and hear the weights hitting the ground in the garage consistently until they're out there at odd times, or I walk into my boy's room and he's doing seal burpees off with his feet on his bed because he's a monster. And it's becoming a part of their kids demonstrate what they're understanding and learning from us in the world through play. So when I see them playing, doing harder things through play, I know that they're paying attention, and I can now speak to that in ways that will have more impact and meaning. And that's where I would lead with action, use words interchangeably till I see what's being reflected, and then create something that has a shared, not awareness, experience that we're all experiencing as part of our identity, because then the words have 10 times more power, and I can now bolt on new concepts because we have momentum.
Yeah, and it reminds me, there's a very famous trainer, Brett Contreras, who says that you have to earn the weight. So if you're not strong enough to lift 100-pound weights, you don't deserve that weight, right? You only should lift the weight you deserve. And I use that with my son. He comes in, right? He wants to swing a heavy weight, whatever it is, and I give him a little bit of FOMO. And I say, no, this skull kettlebell is 70 pounds. You got to earn the right to swing that. If you want, you can have the 10-pounder, you can get there, but you have to work your way up through this series. I've got a 20, a 30, a 40. And every time that you show me that you've earned that weight, you're allowed to go in and do it. But until that, don't do it because you haven't earned it yet. And it sets him on fire. He loves it. He wants so bad to get stronger. So he jumps in at 5. He's doing push-ups. He's doing stuff. But that wasn't happening because I told him, hey, you should work out. That's good. I told him that he has to earn it, and you get this cool thing if you get there. So that was a really key moment for me to understand that boys react the same way as men when it comes to those things.
Yeah. Oh, so you just sparked an awesome idea that at least I have a lot of fun with my boys. And they'll tell me frequently, like a few times a week, they're coming for me, and they mean it, man. They are coming for me. Tuesday nights, I train them. We grapple and spar, and every time they train and they get their full bloodedness from that, they'll say, "Dad, we're coming for you." So it's something that's very present in their mind. They mean it, and they don't back down. Like, I was really frustrated for a while with how lippy they would get with me in times and how defiant. And my wife looked at me and she's like, Jon, do you see that the very men you're wanting, that we want to raise them to be, they're becoming and testing against you because you're the person they can test it against? And like, it changed my entire paradigm on it, because I realized, like, oh, like, if you're not afraid of me as your father, like, you have a healthy respect, but you're not afraid, you're willing to buck up, nothing in this world is going to scare you, dude. Like, you're going to have the courage to go anywhere, because I've smashed you 100 times on the mats. You've gotten in trouble with me. You know the repercussions, yet you have the courage to go. Let's go. And, you know, when they tell me they're coming for me, though, I've started doing this. It's actually diminished the amount of times they say it, but they're working harder. And that, I said, good. My entire life's purpose and work right now, until you're grown, is to build the highest, most ideally placed launching pad to give you the greatest jumpstart and advantage to surpass me in every single way imaginable that I possibly can. And simultaneously, while I'm equipping you to surpass me in every imaginable metric and manner of being, I'm going to make it as difficult for you to do so as is humanly possible. So you better keep working, because I'm never stopping. If I draw breath, you will have to fight to be better. And that's fun.
I love it.
And you want to talk about privilege. Money is not privilege. Having a nice house is not privilege. A dad who pushes his kids like that, that's privilege. Those kids are going to start companies and be amazing men. That's great stuff.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And with 4 boys so close in age, they fight a lot. And someone sent me a clip from Yellowstone the other day, and for some reason I feel this is relevant, but it's like they have this whole unspoken thing of like, you don't fight on this ranch. If you want to fight, come fight me.
Yep.
Well, I used that earlier this week, and it has worked. I've only got to fight once.
That's hilarious. Yeah, dude, I love that. It's probably going to work really good for a very long time. Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I wanted to back up a little bit, and actually what we're talking about also applies to marriage, right? So you're talking about, hey, if I want my boys to do this, I got to start setting the tone and doing all these things. Well, for all the married guys out there, that's also how it works with your wife, right? A little bit of a different nuance here, but you know, you're not going to go sit down and have a talk with her and convince her to change some behavior or something of that nature, right? You have to earn it, like to your point, Dustin. You got to earn the leadership capital there by doing the things yourself. And it does create that FOMO. She's going to want to join along with it right now, depending on the state of your marriage. This is a very nuanced conversation, but in general, I think the same principle applies very heavily of, well, what are you in motion on as the husband first, and then allowing your influence to bring your wife along, right? Now, eventually there will be maybe some more direct measures, but I've found most guys, they're very quick to talk about how their wife needs to change all this stuff, and they have not taken a look in the mirror first. So Jon, I'd love if you have any add-ons for that, because I know you work very hard to cultivate a strong marriage and are obviously a big proponent of it, but take it away.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought this up. We were talking about how our children are great, like, hypocrisy mirrors, right? They'll show us the gap. I think our wives are even better ones, but what's dangerous is they won't say anything. So the words we say and the actions we take, the larger the gap, the less they trust and respect us. And the larger the gap, the less psychological safety there is, and the more we fail to cultivate that for them, which is our primary objective. Or I think our primary responsibility is to create immense psychological safety where they feel loved, safe, and able to flourish. And in turn, we receive respect, love, and care. So to start, I just say, you had better be bloody careful if you're going to correct something in your bride before you've looked in the mirror and burned off the dead wood first. And if it frustrates you, I would encourage you to find something you hate about yourself and work on it for a month before you engage in it, unless it's cataclysmic and emergent. You know, and this just ties into one concept I think that causes a lot of failing because there's not strong brotherhood, or there's a huge crisis of lack of strong brotherhood, is I think men often make the mistake of looking to their wives as accountability partners. And the mistake in that is that your wife was never intended to be your accountability partner, but your life partner to build and support and create alongside you, but not told accountability, because when you ask your wife to help hold you accountable, you are robbing her of the psychological safety, the grit, the resilience, and the intentionality to fix your own stuff so that you may provide. And when you have brothers, that you walk through life in extreme intimacy with who will call you out, you do not need to ask your wife for accountability, but you can partner with her in the creation of that which you guys are building together. And you can create that psychological safety, whether it's struggling with drinking or porn or whatever the instance is, anger. If you have a man that you're walking through that with, that's a different game, and they get to then see the fruit. And what's beautiful about that is you're fixing your own stuff. You're creating accountability with other men, which introduces more shame, because for some reason men don't feel shame when they shame themselves in front of their wives, and they're damning their very marriage because their wives will not complain about the fact that they've lost respect and psychological safety. But that's how you create disgust, and disgust is almost unrecoverable. So, anywho, I blocked out there for a second.
No, you nailed it, man.
Yeah.
Nail on the head right there. Absolutely. And make no mistake, like a wife's number one need is that emotional safety. You know, there are other forms of safety, but that emotional, the way she feels about living in your marriage is the most important thing to fix. And yeah, you said it perfectly. Look at yourself first, burn away the dead wood first, and kind of start walking the walk first. And then we can kind of tweak things over time. But beautiful, man. Love that.
Are you opposed to one more alliteration on that example?
Let's see. Can we tag one? No, I'm kidding. I'm not. Sorry.
So, I own my own business, which is a huge blessing and years of work, right? Being blessed and cultivated to this moment. And in that, though, sometimes there's fiscal difficulties, right? Like, who hasn't had those in life? That's one of the first things I never go to my wife with. We have shared finances. We have a shared budget. But when I'm seeing things that freak me out or that cause me to want to work harder because I see obstacles to overcome fiscally, I go to one of the men in my life and say, hey, this is one of those moments where I'm wearing brown pants. And use your imagination if you wonder why you'd wear brown pants. And I vent that out with them and then get back to work. And it's interesting because now if I even mention stress towards finances, and we're frugal and we're intentional with our finances, but if I mention stress towards it, I can immediately see it in her eyes before she hides it, because I've protected her from that now for long enough. And I have a healthy system in place to be able to not burden her with something that she does not need burdened with. So that's just another example that hopefully is helpful to everyone that's a part of this with us.
Oh yeah. The finances is one of the fastest ways to erode the safety. And to your point, a lot of guys go to their wives to be the accountability for that. And you're just piling rocks on top of her, and she wasn't meant to carry that. So yeah. Now there's a lot of guys are gonna hear this too and think we're advocating for being dishonest. That's not the case. There's a humongous difference here of, like you said, I'm wearing brown pants. John, oh my gosh, what do I do? This whole entrepreneurship thing is kicking my butt. And you're going, okay, I hear you, brother. Why don't you do this, this, and this? Then you can go back to your wife and be like, hey, honey, here's the situation. Here's what we're doing to get out of it, right? So this month, maybe don't buy the thing, right? It's a very different, calm, masculine, honest way to describe it.
In one, you're offloading your own crap, and the other one, you're leading your family. And that's, I'm so glad you made that distinction, because it enhances the intimacy. It does not allow for a separation to be made. And you're able to approach the honest truth of this situation with confidence. And that confidence is what's missing if you go to vent instead of go to lead. So it's like, hey, darling, this month we need to be really tight on that budget and save where we can, because here's what we're facing. As you've seen these things, here's what I'm seeing. Here's the situation. We're going to get through it, but we need to come together as a team to make sure that we can be as intentional with our funds as possible. It's a completely different conversation. I'm so glad you caught that, because that would have been abused. So
yeah, absolutely. So all these things we're talking about, it's very, nuanced. You need to apply wisdom in this situation. Again, this is why Brotherhood is so important, to go get said wisdom from outside perspectives. But the final thing I'll say on this, and then definitely pass it over to either Dustin or Brandon to move this forward, but is modeling this is teaching your children how to be a good husband, or how to, if you have daughters, what to expect out of a good husband in the future. And so that's why it's so critical. I say it often. One of the best things a man can do for his children is to love their mother very well. And by doing that, you model for them what to expect and how to set healthy boundaries, because failing to do that causes just loads and loads of consequences, and none of them are good. So it's the final thing I'll say there is it's definitely worth figuring this out. This is not just about your marriage. It's absolutely about your kids too.
Yeah. Yeah. As you go with that, I just say, if you want to be a better father or husband, focus on being a better man.
Yeah. And find fun things to do with your wife, and make sure that you keep that relationship just as much fun as it was before you had kids. I was listening to JD Vance just did an interview about an hour ago, and he was asked, what's one of the coolest things you've done? What makes you an awesome husband? And he said, I have a special book club just with my wife. And so 3 or 4 times a year, we pick a book that she and I both read together. And I thought I need to start doing that because my wife is in a book club. She reads a bunch of books I don't read, and it creates a little bit of distance. She can tell me about the book, but it's not the same as if I've read it. So I think that's something I want to start picking up, is making sure that we're reading some of the same things, and we can have those fun discussions and really get into the weeds about it. Because if you don't have that, if you don't have those fun discussions, you're just not going to enjoy your marriage as much. And your kids are going to see that. They're going to see that there's some intellectual and emotional distance there. So Jon, what are some things that you do with your wife to create connection and make sure that you stay friends?
It's fun because we're coming out of a year of absolute survival-based chaos, which is the perfect time to ask that question.
I feel that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause
every entrepreneur is like, oh man, I get it.
Yeah. Like, we moved 4 times this year. We're in a long-term home. We're very excited. A lot of it's been intentional and faith-led, but it's been a lot, right? So what do we do? This is the best time to answer that. Not as much as I want to right now. That's the honest answer. That there's more room to grow in that, and we're excited too. But what we do right now is be very intentional to create even small moments of connection alone, despite the chaos. And like what that could look like is, okay, our date's going to be going to do errands today. Let's invest in the coffee. Let's do something to make it so that this is our time, even though it has to be a functional time and not just a fun time. And because of the necessity of the functionality of how we've been operating based on the choices we've made together, that's been fulfilling for us. But I look very much so forward to exploring the different cuisine and opportunities that this new area has with her.
So I call it my triple 15. So when you're taking care of your yard and your grass, what's the best way to grow it? You get some triple 15 fertilizer, right? Well, I broke that down into triple 15 as far as time. So 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes throughout the day, and 15 minutes at night. I do something intentional for or with my wife. So in the morning, I get up, I make her breakfast, I do something that shows her I love her. During the day, I'll send her like 15 minutes worth of texts, pictures, cool things that she'll enjoy when she has a little free time, because she's a school teacher. So she doesn't have it when she's at school, but when she gets home, she gets to catch up. And then 15 minutes of conversation, of just listening to her tell me about her day, keeping, the finger on the pulse before we go to bed, and then, any maintenance decisions or discussions we need to have. And so I think that is one of the best things that a guy can do. And then I also apply that same triple 15 to my kids, to my brothers and family, my brotherhood, or at least I try to. Now, granted, there's only so much you can pour from a cup in a day, so you have to keep that in mind. But I think that's a concept that a lot of guys, if they did that just intentionally every day, it would make such a monumental change in their lives.
So Brandon, at the end of that, do you need to make it 15 seconds or 15 minutes with your wife at the end of the night?
Minutes.
Okay. I got some work to do.
Not like that. Dustin, you sneaky you.
What you'll like with that alliteration, Brandon, is 15 minutes 3 times is 3% of your day. 45 minutes is 3% of your day. So it even works out there. Like, will you invest 3% of your day to have a thriving marriage? Then do the triple 15, 3 by 15. There, just another layer.
Well, and that's the thing too with, like, when you reframe it like that little, if you want to call it a sacrifice of your time, the dividends that it pays is just exponentially ridiculous. You know what I mean? That intentionality, here's that word again, but it's also, I love the way you framed it early, was curiosity, right? When you demonstrate that curiosity, genuine curiosity for your wife, that makes her feel that emotional safety. It makes her feel cherished and appreciated despite all the things you have going on. That 3% of your day, she's going to pay you back 300%. I mean, it's just insane the returns you get out of that. So Brandon, what a beautiful recommendation there. Love that.
Yeah, it's amazing that you said that, because they multiply. We give them seed, they make us a kid. We give them a house, they make it a home. There's multiplication with a helpmate, with a wife, and like they nurture, and so you're fostering that, you're growing that garden, right? And it's such a beautiful thing when you can do it right, and there's a lot of harmony there, and it's the biggest blessing in the world besides children, obviously.
Yeah, I think it even goes before the children. Like one of the things I talk with my
Absolutely.
boys about is you're speaking to my wife, not your mother right now, and I'm not going to tolerate that. I've loved her first, and I'll love her after you've gone into the world. So there's health there. The other thing is, I think it's investment, right? Like, and you just, Brandon, illustrated that beautifully. You give a house, they make it a home. That's a return on an investment that's made, not a sacrifice, right? So it's like, I think that we even get ourselves in trouble where it's like, oh, I have to sacrifice 15 minutes to make her feel loved by sending texts. Like, no, fool, you get the opportunity to invest 15 minutes to make your your partner feel seen and loved and cared for everything she does to return all the beauty that she does to your life. Like, it's an investment.
That's right. Yeah, love it, man. All right, we're getting near the end here, so we want to ask you kind of we have a few questions about fatherhood we ask every dad who comes on. So I'll kick off their first one here, and it's, if you could rewind back to you're expecting your firstborn, and you could give your younger self one piece of advice, or maybe, hey, do it like this time, whatever that could be, what would you tell your younger self?
Don't delay in changing the things you already know you need to change. Because you're not going to be ready to have kids, dude. So you're going to have to figure it out on the fly. But fix the things you know that you need to fix now.
That's great. That's so huge. And I cannot wait to watch this episode again. There's been so much gold, so much great advice here. This is, I'm on fire right now. I'm super excited. So along those lines, Jon, what is your dad's superpower? What is something that makes you special as a dad that you're giving your boys that other dads aren't giving to their kids? What makes you a really unique, special father?
Despite potentially being on the spectrum myself,
that might be an advantage.
That might be an artillery thing. I wonder,
exactly.
Rhythm with the tism.
They select us and like, yeah, you're going to that branch.
Yeah.
They sniff it out on us.
Yeah, you're touched. I would like for it to be the relentless example I strive to make daily for them. I think like the superpower is simple. It's just each morning waking up knowing exactly where I missed the mark the last day because I feel that shame, George, that you mentioned, and realizing, or as I fall asleep and realizing I need to do better tomorrow, and then just not relenting, relentlessly engaging in that. I would say that and becoming a sucker for punishment has been helpful in that pursuit. But I think that if I had one, that would be it, because I'm not going to flinch away from the opportunities to evolve myself that I can better equip them. I'm not going to protect myself from that discomfort. I'm going to face it head on so they don't have to.
Beautiful, man. I love it.
Great. All right. I want to end us on a fun one. So, what is just a fantastic core memory as a dad that you have that just pops into mind first over all the other ones? I know there's probably a lot and they're all up there, but what's a really good one that just stands out that you just love?
Okay. Last year, I heard rave music coming from the garage, and like we just finished eating dinner and they like all just disappeared. Like, bye, mom, dad, gone. And I just hear rave music. And I'm like, what is happening? And I go and I crack the door open, and the neon lights are flashing, the black lights on, all the mats are laid out, and they are just going to war with each other. And as I look in at them and they're all fighting, they all kind of like pause and look, hey, dad, and then just keep going. Don't even miss a beat. Just keep rolling. And I walked back in, closed the door, and you thought that was the best part. The best part, I was like, babe, they're just brawling. And she's like, of course. Just the way she said, of course. It captured everything for me so perfectly, because that whole situation was beautiful and hilarious.
Love it, man. Yeah, that's, I'm a girl dad, so I don't really get that level of chaos in my home, but I'm not, just looking back at me and my brother, I'm not even remotely surprised to hear that, but I love it. That must have been quite the experience for you.
It is. It was fun.
Beautiful, man. All right. Well, hey, time to plug, man. So where's the best place for people to find you, engage with you? If they're interested in WayMaker, what's that look like? What's their next steps?
Yeah, jonmayo.com, hold the H. right? JONMAYO.com, and look through the menu. You'll find everything we talked about. Reach out there or on LinkedIn, and we'll have a conversation.
Beautiful, man. Closing thoughts for the audience. Just one last thing that maybe we didn't get to that you want to leave with them.
I just would encourage to lean in and don't go back to sleep.
I love it, man. Well, Jon, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for your transparency on some of the things where you've struggled. And I know a lot of guys are going to be very helped by this episode. Like Dustin said, I'm going to have to rewatch this just to take notes again and put it in my toolkit. So thank you so much. Appreciate your time and the example you're setting. Go be waymakers, men. Let's get to it. Be intentional. Let's climb that mountain of fatherhood. We'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching this episode of the podcast. If you're on YouTube, drop a subscription to us. And if you are listening on Apple or Spotify, please leave us a review. It helps greatly. If you are also ready to level up as a man, check out Elite Sentinel Coaching, our program designed specifically for men, where we forge men into leaders. We turn cowards into kings, weaklings into warriors. Become the hero in your story. Join us today.